No end in sight to war of words in bookseller's case. 4 arrested in Lok Ma Chau drug bust. And Wukan in Guangdong still tense over arrest of village chief.
Good evening. The plot continues to thicken in the booksellers' case as 2 of them have told a local newspaper fellow bookseller Lam Wing-Ki lied about details he gave about his mainland detention. And lawmakers say the case is raising enough concern to require the Hong Kong government to step up its game. The booksellers' case has sparked fears in Hong Kong about the power of mainland law enforcement agencies. One of them, Lam Wing-Ki, told the media on Thursday he was detained for 8 months by a special central unit. Lawmakers are urging the government to review the cross-border police assistance mechanisms.
According to the notification mechanism, it was not to be reported. Then I think we must review the mechanism to include all kinds of official custody, whichever agency, and so as to protect Hong Kong's people's rights.
The Hong Kong government has got to clarify with the central government as to what really happened, what can be done in future to improve the system.
Bookseller Li Bo has denied some of the claims made by Lam, insisting he voluntarily went back to the mainland to help with an investigation there. But he's refused to explain how he crossed the border. In Tsingtao Daily, 2 other Causeway Bay bookshop staff members also dispute Lam's claims and call him a liar. They say they gave televised confessions voluntarily and were not given scripts to read. The paper also interviews a woman claiming to be Lam's mainland girlfriend who accuses him of using her to deliver banned books without telling her they were illegal. Democratic Party's Albert Ho, who has been assisting Lam, believes they're refuting Lam's version of events to protect their loved ones on the mainland.
I would say that this is something that they should have been expected to say for their own protection. So Mr. Lam just laughed it off and say that, well, I have nothing to add. You know, the public will have their own judgment.
Meanwhile, the pro-establishment camp was out in force to support mainland law enforcement. The group Voice of Loving Hong Kong arranged dozens of coaches to bring hundreds of people to the Legislative Council this afternoon. They accused Ho of trying to gain political leverage. Ho responded by saying it's a matter of public interest as the case involves the safety of Hong Kong people.
Police have arrested 4 people during a major drug bust in Lok Ma Chau. Officers seized suspected cocaine worth nearly $100 million. And they say the amount confiscated was the largest in a single case since 2013. Caleb Long has the story.
In a media briefing today, police said they found 95 kilos of suspected cocaine at Kee Lun Tsuen in Lok Ma Chau on Friday. The whole is worth about $99 million. Police said they intercepted a vehicle during a raid and arrested a woman, her boyfriend and her daughter, aged between 22 and 52. Officers then escorted the 3 to their home nearby and found the suspected drug in another vehicle. A Filipino male domestic worker was arrested inside the residence. All 4 were arrested on suspicion of trafficking in a dangerous drug. Police said some of the suspects have a triad background. They also said they don't know yet where the suspected cocaine came from. They will investigate how it arrived in Hong Kong and where it may be sold. And they said this is the largest amount of suspected cocaine seized in a single case since 2013. But officers played down concerns about an upward trend in major drug cases.
From the figures that I have in hand, I do not see such trend. For example, for cocaine in the past 3 years, there are ups and downs, and there is no persistent upward trend. So I cannot say we see a definite upward trend in this kind of complicated cases.
Police also searched a farm said to be operated by one of those arrested. Officers seized 510 grams of cannabis buds, a handgun, a police baton, and 6 imitation firearms. The cannabis seized is worth about $71,000.
Police have yet to confirm whether the firearms seized are functional.
Officers say there's also a possibility they may be related to other crime cases. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
32 people were injured in a 5-vehicle pileup on Tsingma Bridge this afternoon. The accident caused massive traffic congestion in the area.
In Guangdong, a village meeting turned into a massive protest as hundreds of residents rallied against the arrest of their village leader by authorities. Long live the Communist Party, Lin Zuluan is innocent. That's what Wukan villagers were chanting today amid a red sea of national flags. They're anxious about the status of party secretary Lin, who was arrested on suspicion of taking bribes in the early hours of yesterday. Lin's wife and granddaughter spoke on stage pleading for his release. This villager says everyone is very worried about Lin, as no one knows what's happened to him since he was taken away. He adds that no one believes in the corruption claims he's been accused of. The crowd then marched in protest around their village, while large numbers of riot and paramilitary police stood guard. Residents say developers are illegally taking over their land. Before he was taken, Lin had been planning a protest against this. He had originally organised today's village meeting to discuss how residents could fend for their homes. Deputy Party Secretary Zhang Shuijin told the villagers the Lufeng city government is now taking charge of the investigation into claims of illegal land grabs. But residents made clear they no longer trust the city government, saying the practice of land grabs has continued over the past 4 years. The villagers agreed to gather again on Tuesday and take their protests to the town government. In 2011, Wukan village was thrown in the spotlight when residents staged a massive uprising against land grabs and corruption among local leaders. The unrest was quelled after direct elections were held, in which Lin, a protest leader, was chosen as party chief.
Turning overseas now, thousands of people have been demonstrating in Okinawa in one of the biggest protests against the U.S. military presence there for 2 decades. The protest comes after the recent arrest of an American man suspected of murdering a local woman from Okinawa. The protest threatens plans to move the U.S. airbase to a less populous part of the island. The plan has been put on hold since residents living near the proposed site of the new base expressed concerns about potential noise, pollution and crime.
Indonesian authorities say 24 people have been killed by flooding and landslides in central Java, and many others remain missing. Dozens of houses were buried in the landslides, and thousands of homes were inundated by floods in 16 districts and towns over the weekend. Officials say 26 villages are missing in Purworejo, the worst-hit district. Rescue workers are still searching for victims and evacuating others from their homes.
The family of murdered British lawmaker Jo Cox has given an emotional tribute in her memory. The memorial was held on the same day the man accused of murdering the mother of 2 made a chilling court appearance in which he refused to state his real identity. James Aiken reports.
As they gathered next to a makeshift memorial in Birstall yesterday, the family of Jo Cox described the 41-year-old as a dedicated mother and representative who will live on through all the good people in the world.
We have to continue this strength and solidarity in the days, months and years to come as part of Jo's legacy. And to focus on, as Jo would say, that which unites us and not which divides us. She was a human being and she was perfect. Thank you.
Cox, who was a vocal supporter of European Union membership and immigration, was shot and stabbed on Thursday after she got out of her car for a meeting with constituents. At a church memorial service today, the British MP was described as a dedicated advocate for the poor and oppressed.
And though she must have been angry at times about what she saw here and around the world, those places she visited and worked, she seemed, to me at least, to be one who could fight with a passion and a disarming smile.
The tributes followed the first court appearance of the man accused in her murder, Thomas Mayer. In court, the 52-year-old gardener refused to state his real identity, address, or date of birth. Instead, he replied, "My name is Death to Traitors, Freedom for Britain." he was not required to enter a plea. A psychiatric report that has been ordered for Mayer may influence how the case against him proceeds. Mayer, who is facing several charges, including murder, will appear in court again tomorrow. Meanwhile, with just days left until the referendum, the campaign to decide Britain's membership in the EU restarted today after a 3-day suspension. The overall picture shows the electorate more or less evenly split. 3 new opinion polls show the Remain campaign regaining momentum, with 2 of the surveys showing a narrow lead over the Leave camp. James Aiken, TVB News.
German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier has spoken out against military maneuvers by NATO in Eastern Europe. He said that would raise tensions with Russia. In a newspaper interview, he said, "What we shouldn't do now is to inflame the situation by loud saber rattling." Steinmeier stressed the need for dialogue and cooperation. Russia and the West are at odds over issues such as Ukraine. NATO recently staged large-scale military exercises in Poland. Russia's defense minister has made a high-profile visit to Syria to underline Moscow's role in the region. Sergei Shoigu held talks with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to discuss cooperation between the 2 militaries and the fight against terrorist groups. The visit came a day after Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested that some in the Syrian opposition could join the cabinet to help advance a stalled peace process. Shoigu also inspected a Russian airbase in Syria. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry said today Moscow and Washington have agreed on the need to improve coordination to prevent incidents during military operations in Syria. The Pentagon had questioned Moscow over Russian airstrikes against US-backed Syrian opposition forces last week. And still ahead in our news tonight. Debate heats up over retirement protection. More legal woes for ousted Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi. And Chile rout Mexico in Copa America.